Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my mini series of podcasts on the subject of trauma. This is episode 6, and today I wanted to talk just briefly about addiction and trauma. They are linked. There's no doubt in my mind that they are linked. My experience as a therapist tells me that most clients, if not all clients with addiction issues, have some very deeply ingrained trauma that has happened in their life that has led them down this path. When we talk about addiction, it's very easy for people to think that we're talking about drugs and alcohol. We're not. We are talking about drugs and alcohol, but we are also talking about food, sex, gambling, caffeine, cigarettes, anything like that. So it doesn't have to be an illegal substance. It doesn't have to be that image that you think of somebody slumped on the pavement with lots of cans of cider. We can be talking about people who have massive gambling problems. We can be talking about that mum at the school gate who looks alarmingly thin, who may be battling her own food addiction, unknown to anyone. We can be talking about that person who drinks 20 cans of Red Bull or 6 Monster energy drinks because they are addicted to caffeine. For some reason, they're getting a buzz from that substance. We can be talking about people who have very odd sexual preferences and behaviours. Um, there's a real tendency at the moment for lots of hookups, quite meaningless hookups on sites like Tinder. So I see a lot of clients coming and they're doing this quite meaningless sexual hookup. They have a way that they're dealing with something. They're dealing with some kind of unmet need through doing this. I hear very alarming and quite heartbreaking stories of women, particularly, who believe that they are not worth anything apart from to be used for sex. And they will allow themselves to be sexually exploited or treated very badly because they feel that's all they deserve. And that belief has come from some kind of trauma when they were young. We are looking, when we are engaging in these behaviors, for a dopamine hit. We are looking for pleasure and reward. These are the two things that we need as humans. Normally, if you are a well-functioning person who's gone through school without any problems, you will have your pleasure and reward at school in the form of a good academic report. The teacher will say lovely things about you. Oh, yes, grade A student did very well at this, that, and the other. And your dopamine hit will come from more legitimate means. It will come from pleasure and reward from school reports, from your parents praising you, from winning that medal or that merit cup, getting that sport trophy, all of the things that give you that natural buzz. If you're not getting that natural buzz, you've still got to get that buzz from somewhere. As humans, we have 9 or 10 fundamental basic human needs. If we look at the Human Givens School of Psychotherapy, it talks to us about what those needs are. And those needs range from things like security and safety right through to autonomy, making your own decisions in life, feeling like you belong, feeling accepted. All the things that give you a buzz, a sense of status in the community, a sense of knowing where you fit. And then you can get up every day with a little spring in your step because you know where you are in life, you know what your purpose is. If you don't know what your purpose is and you don't know where you are in life, you have no dopamine coming naturally from the brain. So you have to go out and find the dopamine hit elsewhere. And this is where people start to fall off the rails. So the judgment in this country towards addiction, I find staggering and I find really quite heartbreaking. It's born of a huge ignorance towards these people who are fundamentally very lovely people, very articulate, intelligent people who have fallen off the rails because they had unmet needs. I hear time and again, oh, it's their fault. Oh, they're junkies. Oh, they're druggies. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. Can we stop? Can we stop? And actually think about how you would feel if all of the needs that you had as a human being were not met, and what that might look like, because we can get on a pedestal and we can kind of judge everyone else, but it's really not helpful for these clients that are coming through my door absolutely broken, you know. And sometimes what happens with this is that they haven't allowed themselves to deal with their trauma. And this is a real problem because when we have these defense mechanisms, often people laugh about their trauma. They say, I was raped. Ha ha ha. Um, I mean, who's laughing at that? That's awful, right? But this is a defense mechanism. They don't want us to look at it. They don't want to take it out of the box and look at the pain and the terror that would have happened. They don't want to think about that frightened little child at school who was told that they were going to fail. They don't want to think about the trauma of going home from school to find no food in the cupboard and mum laying in a coma on the sofa because she's passed out from alcohol abuse of her own. They don't want to think about the beatings they got from dad when he got his belt out. They don't want to think about any of this stuff. So they put it in a box, they stuff it down. Absent parent syndrome, I call it absent parent syndrome, hugely problematic for addicts because they've grown up with one of their major role models absent. I'm a single parent myself. This is not me judging anyone. I am not judging anyone. I'm doing the best I can as a single parent, but it's very hard. There are times when my daughter will say things like, why doesn't daddy come to my shows? Why doesn't daddy do this? Why doesn't daddy do that? She's trying to figure out where he is. And with that comes a cycle of self-blame. Children will internalize it as being their fault somehow that daddy isn't there. I must have done something terrible because daddy's not here. Why would he go? Maybe it's my fault. And so starts a cycle of trauma, that we can't break very easily. And when you've grown up feeling unloved, rejected, abandoned, all of these things, we find ourselves in quite a desperate, very often lonely situation where we need to find that dopamine hit to make us feel better again, but we can't find it in our normal, stable environment because our environment isn't stable. So then we reach out for the nearest thing. And the nearest thing is normally alcohol, some other substance, caffeine, food, gambling. I mean, gambling online nowadays, at the touch of a button, you can fritter away all of your money. You can get Tinder out and just swipe and find a hookup for the night to make you feel better. And then the next day, the cycle starts again. So addiction to me is quite a heartbreaking issue. As a therapist, it's not something to be laughed at. It's not something to be judged. It's not something to dismiss these people out of hand because they are people with stories. They are people with very broken and damaged lives that actually need compassion, empathy, understanding, and some kind of reparative relationship, which in therapy is what I'm trying to give them. So for me, I guess the message of this particular podcast is to just make people understand a bit more. I would like people to understand a bit more about what addiction actually is, where it comes from. There's always a reason for it. Nobody in this world is just going out to damage and destroy their own body for nothing. We just don't do that. It's born of some kind of self-loathing, self-hatred, real despair because of things that they've experienced. So actually, the link between addiction and trauma is huge. There isn't addiction without trauma. It isn't possible. There's always a reason behind it. My job is to find out what that reason is and then to work with that reason to get people back on the right path. So I hope this has maybe planted a seed, made people think. If you are somebody who struggles with addiction, maybe it's helping you to understand what's going on for you. if you have friends with addiction, I hope it helps you to understand that they're not bad people, and what they need is not your judgment, but your compassion and your understanding to help them through what's actually quite a difficult situation. So this was a podcast on addiction and trauma. This is episode 6 of my 7, and the next one is just a final one, just about options to deal with trauma, of which therapy is obviously one. But I'll leave this with you for today. Bye for now.